Hello, everybody. I'm Natalie, and this is Scientology Life After a Cult, where I talk about things that are exciting across the internet having to do with Scientology. Also, share about my 35 years in Scientology and the C organization, and most importantly, how I left with 3 generations of my family. Good to see you here joining me in the evening, although for some of you it might be morning. Hello to everybody in the chat. We are so close on the channel here to reaching 8,000 subscribers. So please hit that subscribe button as we go along. If you like the video, hit the like button too. But maybe by the time we finish this, we can get, I think we only needed 50 or so more. Of course, we want to go way past that because my goal is to get those 10,000 subscribers so that my Tony will come on and do a live video with me. But in the meantime, hit that subscribe button. It'd be really fun to hit 8,000 tonight. If you have a question as we go along, if you could write question in all caps before your question, that would be super helpful. It's easier to see. The super chats get starred automatically, but I have to find the other questions. All right. This evening, we are going to have a conversation about Scientology in Austin. And if you don't know, in Austin is now supposed to be one of these ideal organizations, which is a scam by David Miscavige to get parishioners of Scientology to basically buy these buildings and real estate for Scientology. And these buildings are empty. They're big, beautiful buildings, but they don't really fill them up. David Miscavige's idea of if you build it, they will come, though I'm pretty sure he stole that from that one movie about baseball with Kevin Costner. That has just not happened. There's just like no history of that happening. They build it, nobody comes. That's what happens. So Austin is one of those where this ideal organization was supposed to have been opening. No, it's opening now. No, it's opening now. And it just didn't open. And I'm fortunate enough to have connected with Leslie Perlman. She has a channel here. We're going to meet her and then go ahead and share her channel as well. She is a consultant in cybersecurity, and she has a PhD in research and educational psychology. So this lady is smart. And she's going to tell us what she's been seeing in Austin. And if you're in the area and you want to go do your own Scientology audit and protest in Austin, connect with her. I'm sharing a link in the description to her channel as well. I know she would love to connect with people. Hey, Liz Ferris. Good to see you. So I know she wants to connect. So let me introduce you to Leslie Perlman. Hey, Leslie.
Hi there. Thanks so much for having me on.
You can find her channel at Pearl Snappy. So get over there and subscribe to her channel because she's going to be sharing all kinds of video and content as she protests Scientology in Austin. So definitely check her out there.
Yes, please.
Yes. Now, Leslie, so you've created some videos where you've gone to Austin to the organization there that you have been sharing, and you've been, going through and getting your videos and really showing the lay of the land, which is great for those of us who aren't familiar with the area. And you decided to do a little bit of a deeper dive into the permit process and what was happening with that. So why don't you fill everybody in on how you discovered it, just kind of what you found out.
Sure. So I had heard from Aaron growing up in Scientology that Austin org was having a grand opening. And I was just like, oh my gosh, put me in, coach. It's my time. I'm ready. Let's go. So there was a date that was scheduled, which was the 13th. And so I thought, well, let's see if I can find out any information on the Austin permit site.
Yeah.
That's where I found out originally. So first of all, I found out that they are bad at filling out paperwork because they asked for the date to be January 13th of 2023, which was already passed. So they actually meant 2024.
Mm-hmm.
But that told me the streets that they wanted closed down, including the bike lane and the one of the lanes of Guadalupe, in front, like the drag that goes past campus.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I know it's pronounced Guadalupe in Austin. We pronounce that street Guadalupe. We pronounce the river that it is named after Guadalupe, but the road itself is Guadalupe, or the drag. So anyway, I looked to see what they were going to close down. And when I started looking at the files, that's when I was like, oh, so it's from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. and all this information that I couldn't find. But it was pending.
Mhm.
Okay. Then Aaron announces that the date has been changed and there's no updates in the permit site yet. So I kept kind of stalking it out. Then I find one that has the correct year, 2024, and it's for February 3rd. So I'm getting ready. I'm posting about it, like, hey, let's go.
Yeah.
And I look today and it says denied.
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 No,
Absolutely not.
Scientology. No.
Immediately no. Davey, so sorry. Not today. Not today, Davey. Not today.
Not today, Satan.
That's right. Not today. But there's related folders. Okay. So you can get additional information. You can see who filled it out. I do think it's funny that somebody from the LA org filled it out, but they billed it to the poor, not funded mission in Austin. It's so Scientology that I had to mention it. So you
That's
get all
right,
that
because they
extra.
gave the address was the for those of you that watch some of the protests when they're in front of when they go to look for the mothership, the buses, it's the 7331 Hollywood Boulevard, I believe. And that's the Scientology management building.
Yeah.
So it's someone from there.
Right. So that
But
person.
they're billing it to the small local organization, you're saying.
Right. Exactly.
That's still Scientology.
It's perfect. It's just perfect. So I clicked on the related folder and at first it was just empty. It was null. But then I went back and so it's tied to the first permit that they requested, which was for the 13th. So the one that was denied was for the special event. So I called the city permitting department and I spoke to all of the departments today. There was the first number I called, then I had to talk to the rights of way department, and then I had to talk to the special events department. So it turns out that it was denied because there are not enough police officers, essentially, and other city workers to cope with this date.
Do you think, let me ask you this, Leslie, do you think that is because the last minute nature, because Scientology has changed the date, they say, oh, we want a permit, we want it this date, and they change it over and over and over again. And now they were trying to get it for like a week and a half, which I can tell you as a Scientologist, as someone who is in the SEAL organization, that's a huge amount of time to them. Oh, you have an entire week and a half. Their mindset is they're not understanding why you can't just turn this around and have all of the staff and the things that we need there, or how they're jerking around the city and how that might be difficult for the city to accommodate. Was that your feel?
Yes. So when I spoke to I spoke to a couple people today, but the woman that I spoke to that gave me the most information said, we did not deny this because of the nature of the event. We denied it because they keep changing the dates.
Yeah.
And we're getting into the really active season for events in Austin. March is South by Southwest, which takes up the majority of the resources for the whole month, not just the 2 weeks. Well, plus or minus, because then there's film and there's ed tech. So it's really the whole month of March is off the table for them. And so they're gearing up for that. There are other things going on. And the more Scientology keeps pushing the date back, because I'm assuming they don't have enough people to open it or whatever the problem is.
Yep, exactly. I think it was the staff. Not having enough staff was a key part and kind of what the problem was for quite some time, which is why, wasn't it Austin that put out those crazy recruitment videos?
Yes.
What they were still trying to do that and get enough staff to open, even though the building's been done. And meanwhile,
for years.
Yeah, and they're paying rent at some other spot. I just don't understand that at all. That's like you build this big, beautiful home and you move your family while it's being built into a temporary apartment, say, and then your home is all done. but you're not going to move in because there's only two of you in your family and really you think that there should be four of you. So you're going to wait until you have some kids to move into this house. It just makes no sense at all.
It is the most ridiculous thing that I've ever seen, to be honest with you. So that building, I've worked on campus 10 years ago, and that building was open. It looked different. You can Google search how different it looked. It really was pretty tragic, more tragic than it looks now. I mean, now it looks shiny. Um, but it was never really, it's on a very important campus corner too, across from campus. It is next to a coffee shop and then the co-op, which is the bookstore for UT.
Yeah.
And
So there'd
you're
be
just
lots of
across,
people.
tons of people there. And when I was working there, so they had just made it so that you couldn't smoke cigs on campus anymore.
Hmm.
So I'd cross the street and go stand under the Church of Scientology to smoke cigs and kind of stare down the guy that was at the table. I never saw people go in there, ever. There was just not any traffic, but at least it was open. It has been
Hmm.
closed for about 10 years now because
Wow.
they closed it. They moved into this mission. There have been articles in the Texas, like the UT newspaper, in the Austin Statesman about what's going on. Is it ever going to open? There's been all of these rumors in the news, but of course, no one can get any information. And it hasn't been until they truly started to apply for permits that you can see. I mean, they applied for a permit last August and they canceled it. I mean, who has an event outside in Austin in August? I don't understand. But I have only seen action really at the mission and then at the loading dock behind the org that's
Hmm.
on Guadalupe. That's where all the action is happening. You could see them bringing the files in. You could see them standing out back, talking, giving me dirty looks, all that stuff. Um, but I don't know if there are other buildings. So this part of the reason that I wanted to come on here today was to just update anyone who wanted to join, because I do want people to join me when this opens, or even go out there now and stand there and ask students questions and stuff. Like we could go. I
Yeah.
don't know if I can go in front of the mission because it has a private parking lot and it's in like a strip mall.
Hmm.
So I don't know the rules, and I'm not really trying to start stuff with them. I'd rather at least wait till the ribbon cutting. I mean, let me get to that point. Come on, I want to see
Yeah.
little Davy.
Yeah,
I'm a whole inch
exactly.
taller than him. I can't wait to tower over him. I digress. So lots of the Hollywood folks get insider info, right? People leaking emails, people providing info. I don't have any of that here. Probably
Hmm.
because there's not very many Scientologists left here. I mean, there's
Yeah,
enough
they had
that,
said there was what, 120
yeah, I think I said Aaron
Scientologists?
said like 150 in the whole Austin
Hmm.
area. So I don't even know if when they open they would have anything outside, or if it would just be kind of the lights are on but nobody's home.
Yeah. Don't you wonder too, it because these requests, when they want to have these events, are shutting down a lot of streets and the bike path and an alleyway, and these are things that they want to do. I think it's in large part because they want to keep away the protesters.
Yes.
Because if they have 120 people in their field, as they call it, of Scientologists, they don't need all that much room. I mean, yes, there'll be some people that come. Sometimes what they'll do is they'll bus people in too to fill seats for these grand openings. But I think it's mainly they want to shut down a lot of these streets around there because they're learning that people going to show up, but not
Hmm.
show up for the reasons that Scientology would like.
That's right. And I don't think I think they'll get probably some of the things closed. So they're asking for the bike lane and the westbound lane. One left,
And for
one.
how long? For how long?
So they're all different days. Let me see if I can click on it. They're asking for, so it starts out like a week before. So the original date was 113. And so they were asking for the 400 block of West 22nd to be closed from the 9th to the 15th. So days before and after. They want 2
Mm,
days after as well.
Huh.
Sidewalk closed on the north side, which is where they are, from 110 to 114. So 3 days before, one day after. Westbound lane closed all day, from 111 to 114. That's a no. No. Austin's not going to close a lane of the drag. They might get the bike lane,
Yeah.
but it's been redone. So it's one of those insulated bike lanes that has the really big traffic, like a curb and
Yeah.
traffic prevention. So I'm not sure how that's going to work. They also want, so it's on a corner of Guadalupe and 22nd. So they want 22nd closed off. They want the alley behind it closed off for days. And that alley,
For days. We're not just
days,
talking the day
days.
of. Why would they need? Do you have any idea, or have you speculated on why would they need alleyways, bike lanes, all these things, some of them closed for days prior and even days after?
I mean, because they're secret and they're suspect and they like to use, you know, things that they didn't pay for. But it's probably to bring in people, if there's any high profile people, to sneak them
Mhm.
in. I don't know, maybe sneak in the kids that they're trafficking.
Sneak
I
them in,
don't
sneak
know,
them out.
because
Yeah.
I don't know, because so again, in Clearwater and in Hollywood, everyone knows, okay, so these people work in this building and then they go
Mhm.
to sleep in this building.
Yeah.
I don't have any of that information. I don't know if there's a hotel that they're doing this mess out of in Austin, or is it all happening at the org? Are they gonna just bus them in from the Mission building?
Mhm. What's parking like around there? What's parking like for the
Terrible,
building?
terrible. So there is a parking structure that's owned by the university. I assume that
Mhm.
that's where people will park, and it's off of San Antonio and 23rd Street. So a street behind and a block over. So they could pay to park in the university parking. They could try to find street parking and walk, but those are your options.
Yeah. Did when you spoke to people at the city, did they give any indication as to, because they had made comments like this is just not enough time for us to organize these resources that we don't have to be able to do this in the 10 days or whatever it is. Did you get any feel for what would be a reasonable amount of time to put in this request? When I think I've been involved in many events in my community, and when I think about that and going to city council to get certain things approved, I mean, you're talking 2, 3 months, maybe even more, depending on how big the event is. A lot of cities, it's a minimum of 60 days where you got to go before council to get it approved to hold these type of events. And they're trying to get it approved in 10 days. Did they give you any idea about what would be a respectable amount of time?
She did say it's normally around 60. And if you look at the original date of the application, it's December 14th. So so even at the jump, they were only doing 30 days, which is
Yeah.
probably why it's still pending, was never approved. And again, there's two types of permits that they need to apply for: the right of way permit
Mhm.
and the special events permit. So it was the special events permit that was denied. And the one that is still pending, that one's gonna sit there pending until they agree upon a date. So now the city and the Church of Scientology have to work together to find a date that works for everybody. Um, I can't imagine that they're gonna be able to squeeze it in February, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I
because they
I
would have to, right? Because South by Southwest is happening in March, and like you were saying, that's an event that ties up resources for weeks prior, so the whole month, there's no way that they're gonna approve that. So
Right.
really,
Oh,
we're
March is out.
talking, yeah, so
March is out.
if they can't do it that first weekend in February, which is the 3rd, you've only got a couple weekends in there, and I would wonder too, could they still accommodate, even if you're talking about the end of February, given that there's so much that's gonna be happening in Austin because of the big event that's coming in March? Because I'm sure I can tell you right now in Scientology, the big push is to get this done so they can video it and film it and share it at the March 13th event as propaganda about how great Scientology is doing and how much they're expanding. And they will leave out the details of that it took them years to get enough staff, if they even get there, and all of those other details they're just going to leave out. And I bet too, when they go and they've been changing the dates with the city when going through the permit process, is because they didn't have the staff together, because like you're saying, the building's been done. Why not do it? What is this thing about, like, so you're short however many, several, I think it didn't even sound like it was too much. They were very close. But why wouldn't you just do it when you have a date picked out and you want to get it? Well, look at me. I am questioning someone it makes no sense. In
Yeah,
Scientology, a lot doesn't
these
make
folks
sense.
don't make great decisions. So I'm looking also. So the person who applied is SMP Nick Banks,
Mm.
and it was
SMP.
billed. I don't know what SMP means, but it's in front of his name. And then billed to Church of Scientology Austin, Jean Lefebvre.
Hmm.
And she's on everything. She has applied for everything. When they had to apply to get lights to illuminate the sign on the church, she
Sure.
applied for that. That's a really interesting filing too, because they have full schematics of the building and of the sign and like the intricate lighting and what it all
Yeah.
means. So that was kind
Yeah,
of
that has to
fascinating.
all be approved when you're doing something in a city with the city council.
Right.
That's so fascinating. Now, with, your tell me this, what got you interested? Because you've never been in Scientology,
Right.
and you're a cybersecurity consultant, you got this PhD. How did you get started? How did you decide, I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to go videotape Scientology? Oh, someone's saying, oh, okay, Powered Lives to Paralyze. SMP is Scientology Media Productions.
Okay.
Ding, ding.
Okay, well, that is who applied. So how did I get involved? I think like most people that have never been in, I saw Going Clear. I saw all of the documentaries. I watched Leah, and then as soon as I ran out of this, and my mod on my channel, Dumpster Juice, her and I are both just like whatever we can consume. And she grew up in the Clearwater area, so she actually probably knows more than I do because it
Wow.
ruined her hometown. So I'm interested in the obvious. It's a human interest story. How could it not be, right?
Yeah.
You've got famous people, you've got people being beat up. And again, up until I found Surge and more people have come forward, I really was just dealing with that sanitized version that
Mm.
is on network television. But I also, part of my PhD, so I'm a psychometrician, I make standardized tests and I study behavior, and I study how one person interacting with people, their behaviors and beliefs change. So how could this not be fascinating to me, right? This is a mathematical model. I can see it in my head of
Yeah.
all of this happening. When I started really listening to Surge and listening to kids, how can you ignore that? How can you ignore that?
Yeah.
And the high control group that I was in, I went to Hillsdale College. Okay, I am not like we're not. Not trying to make this about politics. But I had a very different frame of reference and thought process when I went there, and I didn't ask as many questions as I should have, and I just was like, okay, but things started to click to me.
Hmm.
Like this isn't okay. What's going on here? So I understand a lot of the feelings and the emotions and the triggers when I hear folks that have gotten out. I that resonates with me.
Mm.
Clearly not in the same or dramatic way, but I understand how angering it is to be lied to and to realize you've been lied to. And to realize that you were out there singing a camp song and you did not know why you were singing the lyrics. You knew the lyrics, you just didn't know why you were singing them. That's gross and it's manipulative. And as I've gotten older and dealt with people in jobs and other places, I'm gonna blow a whistle on you. If you're
Mm.
doing stuff that is not okay, I'm gonna blow the whistle. That's me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it. I don't tolerate bullies. I don't tolerate people being taken advantage of. And I feel like I am a big mouth and I'm not shy. But the kids that are still in there, they don't have a big mouth. They're starting to get them now. I don't want to say they don't. It's not like just me, right? All the people now that are out
Mhm.
there, and so that's me. That I want to be part of that. I want to be part of letting people know it's not just about the aliens and stuff, okay?
Yeah,
Which is
exactly.
it's not just because honestly, that to me is like the least egregious part,
Truly.
frankly. Um, it's about child trafficking. It's about being a pyramid scheme. I watch a lot of anti-MLM content. I see the consistency in behavior between Nexium, between MLMs, and all of these different groups. And so I see it and it bothers me, and I want to say something.
Yeah.
A little side note too. So I worked for a company, and they developed this software that would analyze your essays. And so this you can a lot of software does this now where it'll tell you the tone. Oh, this is a business tone. This is a casual tone. It'll pick certain things out with your personality.
Mhm.
So I was trying to do the work to validate their instrument. So they had this. They were like, "We think it works. Does it?" So I'm digging into it. Why was it based on Dianetics though? Why did I find out that the whole thing was based on Dianetics? No one wanted to tell me.
Wait, what? What?
The software to pick out your personality types, it was all based on Dianetics.
And where was this?
This was at, I don't necessarily wanna say because
Oh,
they're
okay.
still
But
they're
you're
still open.
saying so this was a company, a private company that employed software to determine personality types. Was it the
Yeah, so
personality test that Scientology uses?
no, no, we'll talk about that too. No, this was more, it was using your writing samples to pull out behavioral traits about yourself. So, let's say I'm trying to hire
Mhm.
for a role. I'm going to identify the traits that I think are the most important, and then I'm going to tune our little algorithm to really look into the writing for those um, either strengths or deficits in certain behavioral things. And I'm like, why are there 8 and then 16? Because there's the opposite. I'm like, why? What is this? And I'm like, this sounds familiar to me. And so one of the engineers, we went out for drinks, and he was just like, so I have to tell you, this is based on Dianetics and NLP, which is like natural neural language processing. It's also pseudoscience. That's what the lady that was partners with Keith Raniere, the like the woman who was like one of the head teachers there,
Yeah, yeah.
that was her pseudoscience background. So I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. You want me to help you with a software that is built on Nexium and Dianetics? Hard pass. Hard pass." Hard so when I see it
Sign me up.
infiltrating, I'm like, "No, immediately no. Nope, mm-mm, not helping,
So that
not
what were
and
they
I'm
using
telling."
it what were they using it for? Was it to
Hiring.
determine for hiring? Wow.
So a company would hire them to say, "I need to hire, um, these different roles," and they would go through a process and identify the traits that they were interested in, and then when you applied for a job, you would then be sent a link. It would ask you very generic questions. It was just something to for you to generate text. And it would look at the language that you use, parse that out, and then identify what your strengths and weaknesses were. So it
Wow, just with
was
like a benign question just to get you to communicate.
Mhm.
Almost like
Which you can do. You can do
uh-huh.
that.
Yeah.
That's not the issue. The issue is that so you have to have parameters. Any AI, there's parameters in the background making it go.
Mhm.
The parameters and the things that you link it to, though, should probably maybe not be Dianetics.
Yeah. That's just blowing my mind. So then is it safe to make the assumption that it was done that way because somebody in the company, owner of the company must have been a Scientologist?
So that's what I'm wondering, but the guy is very, very secretive, okay? So the
Mhm.
guy that built it, you're never gonna
Which
find
again is a
anything.
check in the Scientologist column.
Yeah, and he is not allowed to actually speak with the company anymore. They bought him out, and they were like, "Go away."
Yeah.
But I don't even know that the president and the CEO knew because I told them, and they looked shocked. Now, they could have just been faking it, but
Yeah.
they were just like, "What?" So, that guy's name, though, is Warren Wolf. So the guy that invented it, I'll give that information, I don't care. I
Mhm.
don't know. His name is Warren Wolf. I think he lives in Portland.
So he invented the software. So is he
The
the one that
algorithm.
made the algorithm so it and tied it and it was somehow tied to Dianetics or based on Dianetics?
Yes.
Huh, that is so interesting. That's crazy.
So
So
weird.
yeah, so you have that experience and then you're, with your background and like you said, you're watching things on social media, on YouTube and hearing these stories and you're connecting to it and decide that you want to do something about it. So you go and you start, and again, I'm going to share her channel at Pearl Snappy. Head over and subscribe
Thank
to her
you.
channel because she's going to be outside at Austin. And if you're in the Austin area, connect with her because now is the time. Especially with this opening potentially coming up. Is there anything from the perspective of cybersecurity, being that that's your background, that advice that you would maybe give protesters or people going out to protest Scientology to kind of just protect themselves a little bit in that way, especially when you think about places
Sure.
that have all of the cameras?
Right. So the cameras. You can go to Amazon and get a screen protector that will prevent. So if you're on, like a bus, somebody behind you, somebody next to you, they can't read your screen. You need one of those. It'll have a very small amount on the whole screen that you can read. It's like this, truly. So if you're not in this little part of a 360, then you can't see the screen. You should
Yeah.
get one of those because they have very high powered cameras, really high powered cameras that can read your screen. They can look at what you're typing. After
And
that,
specifically the Scientology cameras.
oh, the Scientology
Yeah.
cameras for sure. The city cameras, there's too many people walking by, and like they now could they zoom in? I don't know, but Scientology does. They have really good cameras. If you look at the ones that they just put up on the Hollywood building, they replaced those cameras on the one on the testing center. Those
Yeah.
are the screen reading cameras. Those can zoom in and look at what is on your phone. That also, sometimes when you film a screen and it gets those weird lines in it,
Yeah.
when it's good that does it's you're gonna get like a crystal clear shot of somebody's phone. So if you're entering in a password, if you're texting somebody and their phone number is at the top, they're gonna see all of that. So get
Yeah.
a screen protector.
And
But yeah,
their cameras too at the Scientology buildings, you'll see them often because someone's live streaming, and I've seen this with some of the live streamers. They're holding their phone like this, so they're live streaming their face, but you can see up above, and right above them is one of these cameras. And you're saying that these cameras at the Scientology buildings can definitely read your phone. So
yes.
get one of those what'd you call it again? It's
It's a
screen
privacy
protector,
screen.
privacy screen, put it
Mhm,
on your phone, which comes in handy too, I guess, anywhere. Because like you're saying, you have to be right in front of it to see it. So if
mhm.
you're on
It's
a
just
plane, on a
polarized.
bus
Yeah, it's
okay.
polarized. So, like if you are wearing polarized sunglasses and you look at
Mhm.
a computer screen and it kind of blocks some stuff out, it's like that, but times 10. And they're not expensive. But yes, you should have one of those. And number two, um, when you're on mobile and you're
Mhm.
streaming, you're texting, you need to be on a VPN. If you are using data, then you need to have a VPN. Whether you get one separately, I use Aura, not sponsored. Um, I use Aura because they have everything: identity protection, credit score protection, bank accounts, password vault, whatever. So use a password vault so that you're not typing that stuff in,
Mhm.
especially in front of their cameras. And use a VPN so that all of your stuff is encrypted because you don't want them to be able to access an app that might be not as secure as you would like.
Sure.
Or
And can you
if
kind of
you
explain a little bit for anyone that might not know what a VPN is?
Sure.
I
So
mean, I kinda know. I've heard about them, but honestly, I don't have a real good understanding of what they are.
yeah, so so VPN stands for a virtual private network.
Mhm.
And if you don't have one, then so let's say you're just at home and you turn on your computer and your
Mhm.
computer connects to your router and your router goes out to the internet. Now anybody's website that you go to, anybody who if you send an email, all of that stuff can be found, your own IP address, which is not necessarily a way to dox you because it's a little bit more convoluted than that. But what a VPN does is instead of your router connecting directly into the whole internet, it's going to connect to a server that is owned by whatever company, and it's going to mask your IP, but it's also
Mhm.
tunneling all of the data through an encrypted tunnel. iPhones have great encryption. I don't know anything about Androids. That's not my business. I'm sure that it's fine, but I know that Apple's is really strong, but still you need a VPN. And here's
Mhm.
why. So let's say I'm out in front of the Church of Scientology on Guadalupe. Right next to me is a coffee shop. I've been to that coffee shop before. So my Wi-Fi might pick up. Anybody in that coffee shop, if I'm not on a VPN with very little sophistication, can access that router and then access my phone.
Wow.
Which also means that anybody who's next door at Scientology, if they can access that router, they can access my phone. But if I'm on a VPN, everything that is happening is encrypted and they cannot. And they're not going to break that encryption.
So is this an app? It's a service that you sign up for, but is it an app that goes on your phone and then it just
Yes.
automatically, when you go to the internet or you use any apps, it's automatically used then? It
You could
just
turn it on and off. I use TorGuard and TOR guard, and I
Mhm.
use auras. And so you could turn it on and off. You could select your server too. So you can buy more expensive streaming packages. So let's say you really want to watch Netflix in Germany, you can use a VPN to watch Netflix in
Mhm.
Germany if you buy the streaming package, because it's going to then set your IP address to somewhere in Germany. Netflix is like, hey, cool, this person's in Germany. I'm going to hook them up with this content. So if you want to watch stuff like that, you can use a VPN for that. Again, you're going to have to pay extra for the
Yeah.
streaming, but it really just allows you a little extra layer of encryption for your data to be going through, so that if somebody who's sitting there like me, if I was using a pet, they're called packet sniffers because your data is sent little packets. If it's not encrypted, I can just set that up and watch all the traffic that goes through and watch it all
Wow.
and read it, click on it, read it. If it's encrypted, I'm going to have to go through a lot of extra steps, and likely I'm not going to be able to break that encryption.
Yeah. So you're
Not with my
saying
own laptop.
between the cameras at Scientology that can zoom in on somebody's phone, so protect our phones with one of those covers, but then using a VPN. When you have a VPN, do you need one for your phone and one for your computer, or is it the same service?
So generally it'll allow when you buy one, there's free ones. I think NordVPN is free. There are free
Mhm.
ones. I just like TorGuard. PIA is also good. PIA, private internet access. It'll allow you a certain number of accounts. So you can just use the one account to put out, because I've got 2 laptops, 3 laptops, and 2 phones. They're all covered.
Wow. So Liz Gale, hey Liz Gale here on YouTube. She says, I just got here wondering if she's saying that Scientology hacks Wi-Fi. We're talking about, Liz, how when you're out, and you should know this, Liz, you got to learn this. I'm learning it as we go here. How you got to protect your phone because the Scientology cameras can read it, but also using a VPN so they don't hack your phone. Do they? I don't know. We're just being I don't know what would make us possibly think that Scientology could do something like that. No.
I mean, they're such upstanding folk.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would never dream
Mhm.
of doing such a thing.
Let's see here, which I'm going to just grab a couple questions. Liz Ferris, what's your email? Natalie@tonkatalk.com. TONK talk. MT Kaysen, with so few people in these fields, how do they justify these massive buildings? Surely the fortunes of Tom Cruise and their other celebrity backers can only pay for so much. They justify it by convincing Scientologists that if you build it, they will come. And it doesn't happen. They build it, these buildings are then empty. But the whole scam is so that Scientology, specifically David Miscavige, has all of this money in real estate all over the world, and they don't pay taxes, right? They're a nonprofit, which, side note, there's a link in this description where you can go find out how to reach your people in Congress so that you can ask them, where do you stand on a hearing into Scientology's tax exempt status? So side note there. But yes, they're not it's all part of the propaganda of Scientology because it looks like, oh, Scientology must be doing great because they have all these new buildings. And I got to tell you, when I was in Scientology, my best days in, we were all mortified by the state of the building in Scientology because they had no money. So this was a scam to rectify all of that so that people who dealt with VIPs in the community or celebrities could bring people in to a nice building. In fact, I heard that Tom Cruise pitched a fit when he was dating Penelope Cruz, and Spain then shortly after became one of these ideal organizations with this beautiful building because he wanted to be able to take her in there
Gross.
when they were in
And jump on the
Spain.
couches.
Yeah, and go jump on their couches. Maria Martins asks, why don't they fill orgs with Sea Org members? Isn't the floor on the Texas org comfy enough for them to sleep in? They do fill them with Sea Organization members, but you got to remember they don't have that many. And Sea Organization members have been sent all over. Austin is just one of a few that they have, and they do that. They send them there to try and fill these holes. Do all of the different Scientology come together once a year or something? They come together for multiple events, multiple propaganda events in Scientology. And the one that's coming up is L. Ron Hubbard's birthday, which is March 13th. So usually the event is somewhere around there. And that is where they share this propaganda. And that's why this Austin organization was such a big deal for them, to be able to get it open and then share the propaganda about how great they're doing and all that. Pearl Snappy, I'm in the Houston area and plan to come to Austin to protest with my adult daughter. How can I sign up for the latest information? Not being a creep, just want to maximize my efforts. Well,
pearlsnappy@gmail.com.
there you go. Maybe the mods could put that in the chat as well, and then I'll add it to the description of the video. We do have a link to your channel. Get over there and subscribe at Pearl
That
Snappy.
email, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I do think that if you click on the information, I do think it gives the Pearl Snappy email address there.
Yeah, because I can't wait to see the videos that you're going to be doing. It's so fascinating, especially with your background in cybersecurity. Tell me, because you also, your PhD is in, what was it in again? Educational psychology and
Yep.
research.
I'm a
Research.
psychometrician.
Yeah, let's talk about the personality test.
Let's do it. So,
because I mean, this is what you do, right? For people who are just jumping in, can you just kind of give the cliff notes of what it is you do and why this makes you the perfect person to talk about the Scientology personality test with?
So I'm a psychometrician, and that's just really fancy for saying I make tests. So any sort of math, English test that your kids are taking, I probably was involved with it or am involved with it in some way, shape, or form. There are statistical models that go into building the assessments to cover content, or if it's a survey, so let's say it's a personality survey or something like that. We can even do the personality test. We'll talk about Myers-Briggs, right? There's a map that says we need this many questions about this topic to be able to get a valid response from this, or to get enough data to compute a score. Okay. And Myers-Briggs, most of those personality tests are like astrology for nerds. No offense to nerds or people that are into astrology, but that's what it is. I'm not saying that they're not valuable, but I will say that you're not going to make a decision based on your outcome from a Myers-Briggs. Those are designed to help people in a company talk to one another and say, hey, this is my communication style, or sometimes I do need some time when I get news. Having this conversation, I do see, yeah, I need some time when I hear bad news before I can have a conversation with you about something. That's what those tests are made for. It's not really, and they're meant to change over time as well. So no one is making a huge decision. You're not getting hired. You're not getting fired. You're not getting a promotion. You're not getting a demotion from any of those things. It's a way to build community and to start a conversation about different types of people and how they interact with one another. They're great for that. But if you're like, I'm an whatever 4-letter combination you are, and like, I live and die by, like, that, great, good. But again, you're not making decisions. The personality test that Scientology gives, the questions are probably fine. it's clear that the answers are rigged because I've seen enough people come out of the test center to say, oh, I was very high on this, but very low on this. And if the survey was done properly, that couldn't happen. So the one woman that I forget now, I was telling you earlier, she
Yeah,
was
she
like
was
high.
outside the Hollywood Testing Center with her
Yeah, and she
husband,
was,
I think.
yes, and she was high on personal responsibility, or no, she's task driven, but then low on personal responsibility. Like, okay, so I have problems with the validity of that assessment.
Mhm.
Because that shouldn't be happening. So you've got, when you talk about an assessment and like, is it good, right? Is this a good test? You're actually talking about validity, and without getting into the weeds too much, there's different types. There's face validity. If I look at this math test, are there math questions on it? Okay, that passes
Mhm.
the face validity. And there's content validity. Is this the content that I think it is? Then there's construct. So a whole bunch of items go together and they build a construct, right? So it might be a whole bunch of items that are about mathematical processing or your personal beliefs about something. It's a group of items. But the most important one is consequential validity. And what that means is, can I use the data that came from this to make a decision, a data informed decision? Well, the answer to the one that Scientology uses is clearly no, because whatever you answer, it's going to be like, you need help from us. That's a problem. That's a problem. So it could be a fine assessment. It could be just as good, if not better, than Myers-Briggs. But the way that they have the scoring rigged is what's problematic about it. So they're
Ah,
rigging it. And so on its face, might have face validity, might have content validity, does not have consequential validity. Because what is going to happen, the consequences of your results are that if you're not well informed, you are going to spend a lot of money and time and potentially traffic your children into this cult based on a score from a test. That's
yeah.
gross.
That sounds like it's invalid, and this is not accurate as somebody who's an expert on these type of tests. Tell me this. I'm going to grab this question here. Leaving Scientology, is it illegal for Scientology to spy on us by getting into our accounts?
But yeah, of course.
Mhm. Do
There's
you
multiple ways to do it though, too. You got to think about that. So there's brute force. Like you could have my log. They have my login, right? They
Mhm.
see that I'm Pearl Snappy here. They're probably going to assume that I'm Pearl Snappy other places. Good assumption. If they get the password to one, they're going to be like, "Oh, I'm going to try to put that on another one." For no, because so change your passwords. Don't use the same password for all of your accounts. Because if they get one and you have it for, then they're going to then they will log into your stuff. That all of this is illegal. Even if
Yeah.
they're standing over your shoulder watching you do it, that's illegal. It's called shoulder riding, shoulder
Did you say
surfing. I'm
legal
sorry,
or illegal?
illegal. It's called
Illegal.
shoulder
Okay.
surfing.
What about
Okay,
when
that's
they're with
illegal.
the cameras where they can read
Illegal.
your phone? So
They
that's
can read
actually
it. They
yeah.
can read it all day long. They can read it
Mhm.
all. If you're in public and you're showing it off and you didn't protect it, now if they use the information that they read to do something nefarious, then yes, it becomes problematic.
That is really interesting.
Yes, multi-factor verification. I have this too. So I have a YubiKey. I have a YubiKey.
YubiKey.
So the Y stands for Yubi and then key.
Mhm.
I can't log into anything, my phone, nothing, without having this. So I'm gonna have to text stuff too. But like, if you steal all my information, you're not getting anything without this. And it
Ah,
plugs into my computer or it touches the phone. So like when I sign into my bank and my bank is like, hey, we're gonna send you a text. I'll get that text and I'll enter it, and then I still have to use this.
yeah.
So you could set
Wow.
these are not expensive, but this is a really good way to protect your everything as well.
Yeah, especially if you're gonna be hanging around on Scientology and protesting. Leaving Scientology asks, have you read Science or Survival and read the entire chart and all chapters related to each column? So I don't know if you know it. So Science or Survival is a book that L. Ron Hubbard wrote where he really gets into, and it would be fascinating. Leaving Scientology, that's a great question. Almost we got to get you a copy of this book just so that we can talk about it. He talks about there's this whole tone scale in Scientology of different emotions and characteristics that go with those emotions. And so, for example, 1.1 in Scientology is considered covert hostility. You know, you're smiling, but then you have a knife behind your back. That's the
Mm.
example that's
Oh,
even
that's
given.
me.
But L. Ron Hubbard goes on to say that that is where people who are gay are, because he was so homophobic
Right.
that, and there's all these different characters, and also, not he even said, well, promiscuity, if you're promiscuous, like that's where you are too. So each of these emotional tones have these characteristics that go along with it. And it's this whole chart. And he says, if you can locate where somebody is on this chart, that you can then predict their behavior. And of course, in Scientology, this is used as a very manipulative tool because it's used in what, well, for example, the one I just said, it's used as a tool to encourage homophobia because of what L. Ron Hubbard said back in the 1950s when he wrote this book. I think Science or Survival was written in the 50s. And but it's from your perspective of with your background in these tests and whatnot, I think it would be so interesting. You wouldn't even need to read the
Yes.
whole book,
No,
but
I'm
just
I'm
kind of
interested.
see.
It also sounds kind of like that sounds like what they may have used too at that previous job that I was at.
Oh, the one that was based on Dianetics. Yes, that would make sense. Yeah, it's called Science of Survival. Um, we'll have to get you a copy. Nebulous is saying, are Scientology tests applicable or authorized outside the organization slash cult? If so, by which government department? That I'm aware of, they're not authorized by any government department, but Scientologists will use these in their business to. This is what the World Institute of Scientology Enterprises, which is called WISE, which is a Scientology front group that will go out and recruit chiropractors and dentists and people who tend to be very good at a specific job but not have a background in the business side of things, so it makes them a little bit vulnerable. And these wise consultants come along and basically take a bunch of money, put in some organizational things from Scientology, some basic things that if it was a crap show already, any type of organization put into there is going to help. So then the dentist or the chiropractor finds it helpful. And then their consultant from this Scientology front group says, well, it helped you with this. And then they dig into your life, like, how are things with your spouse? How are things with your kids? They're trying to find your ruin, as it's called in Scientology, and then bring you into Scientology. If this helped you in your business, then come do these things. And that, when they start then trying to get employees at these businesses to take Scientology courses and do Scientology auditing. And it's where quite a few Scientologists have gotten in trouble legally for making their employees study Scientology, practice Scientology.
Yeah, no one
Well,
wants that.
no, nobody wants that. Nobody, we ain't
I
about that life.
It's funny to me that so any personality test is based on psychology. That's why it works. So it's funny to me that all of this stuff that they use, they're so anti-psychology, anti-psychiatry, but it's like, not you using it to get people in the door though,
Mhm,
because I
mhm.
see you. I see you.
Correct. Coralie Mentor, my job used a consulting company based on Scientology and talks a lot about that tone scale. Yeah, that that makes sense because again, they use these different emotional tones and saying that these are the characteristic of somebody who is that way. And there's little bits of truth in it when you go, well, yeah, when I'm sad, I do feel that way. These characteristics do fit. And it's just so part of the scam because in Scientology, it's, well, when you do enough of the bridge to total freedom, you can raise your tone. You could go from maybe being angry all the time or depressed all the time to being exhilarated or in action. That's all kind of part of it.
By talking to yourself and learning about Xenu, help me understand because it's not, you know, like
Mhm.
I'm gonna need to see the construct relevancy
Yeah.
research on that because I'm not seeing it.
Yeah,
Not seeing it.
exactly, exactly. It's those things that you once you're so trapped in Scientology, it's easier to, like, you have to believe it. You actually have to believe that this is true, what's being said, what L. Ron Hubbard is saying about it. Janine Greider, thank you so much for the super chat. I'm in Texas and would enjoy a trip to Austin if I knew where and when. So that's the big question. Scientology keeps changing the date on these permits. And the one they were trying to get was denied for not this weekend, but the next weekend. Liz Ferris, thank you so much for the super chat. Scientology has our social and all info, hence they can track us. Liz, that is a great point because in the C organization, or if you're a staff member, you are giving them your social security number. Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's so true. That gets handed over. Ooh, Liz with a good comment.
So I want to make, so there was a comment that I saw in the chat that I wanted to address, and it's somewhat related. So
Yeah,
somebody
please do.
said VPNs sell your data. Some do. Do your research though, because not all do. Aura and Torguard do not. Now, another thing that Aura offers, again, not sponsored, but should be. Aura will, at a click of a button, scrub the internet. It will look for all your information and it will remove it. And it will file forms on your behalf to have stuff taken down off of public search sites. All the things that everyone uses to be like, what's the criminal background? You don't want your stuff on there? Do you really want to go to every one of those sites? No. So I pay Aura to do that for me, and it does it on its own. It goes every month or so. It goes through the intertubes. It's not perfect, but it takes off a lot of stuff. So that's, I mean, I look like an orphan if you look me up, which is exactly how I want it. I'm not an orphan, but as far as anyone who's sus and trying to find out who I'm 100% an orphan, no parents, no family, nothing. Just stop looking right there. So yes, the
Mhm.
third is postponed. Unless they just don't care about having the permits, right? Unless they're just like, you know what, forget this. We're just going to open because there's only 7 of us anyway. There'll be more protesters than staff.
That would be the
Um,
hilarious thing, right? If enough people showed up to protest more than they actually had in the building. And we're going to have to end up seeing what they do because, like you were saying, the city, they only have a few weeks that this could work where they could do it because of South Southwest coming up and
mhm.
everything that goes on around that. There's not, there's just not a lot, there's not a lot of time there. I'm curious, how did you get into the cybersecurity field? What made you decide to go into that line of work? And tell me this, how does it tie together with you have a PhD in research and educational psychology and you're a consultant in cybersecurity. What made you go, did you wake up one day and go, I know what I'm going to do? Because I find it absolutely fascinating.
So I got into cybersecurity because it's always been a part of my job. So when you're getting millions of student records, because I was in charge of the English and math assessments for 6 million kids in 14 states. But before I can even look at those data need to be secure. How are they coming in? How are we sending it out? How are the
Mhm.
states getting access to these things? How are we getting access to the individual student records, to aggregated stuff, right? So it was part of my job that frankly I was not being paid for. In addition, I blew the whistle on some things that were happening related to racial and socioeconomic status equity and measurement. And I'm not saying I have the answer. I just wanted to talk about it. Well, a lot of
Mhm.
other people didn't want to talk about it. And so I was kind of forced out. And so then I blew the whistle. And so then I was like persona non grata in K-12 education for like 2 years. Um, and so I was like, well, I guess I'm going to go get a degree in cybersecurity. So that's what I did while I was consulting and being, you know, completely unhireable in K through 12 education because I'm a troublemaker. If I see something, I'm going to say something, especially when it
Mhm.
comes to kids. Okay,
Yeah.
period. So if that you're not blaming the teachers, stop blaming the teachers. Stop blaming the kids. And these are $1 million decisions, $1 billion decisions being made off of this stuff. You have accessibility accommodations for everything. If you have an IEP for your kid, if you have an individualized education plan, we have a special form for you. If you need Braille, we have a form for you. If you need ASL videos, we have a form for you. But what about, I grew up in a place where there really was not a lot of infrastructure for things, because we also tested the Bureau of Indian Education. That was also one. So the inadequacy of things being equal, okay, for people that are
Mhm.
used to interacting with the computer, where the stories, the essays that they're reading make sense to them and resonate. No one's doing that. They'll do an analysis to make sure that there's not a disproportionate number of any group, females, um, black students, Hispanic student, whatever your group is. They'll make sure that there's not like a disproportionate number of kids in whatever group that you're looking at gets it wrong. But that's about all they do. They're not looking to see, does this essay that we're having these kids read, does this resonate with everyone? Are we using enough diversity in the stimuli? Are we considering all of the things that we can?
Mhm.
And so I blew the whistle on that. So clearly not afraid to just be like, career, what? Who needs it? It's fine. It's just gone. So don't threaten me with a good time trolling people that are doing messed up stuff to kids.
Mhm.
So that kind of so that's how I got from educational assessment into cybersecurity. And now the consulting that I do is kind of combined, where I'm looking at protecting data, protecting student data,
Mhm.
and helping people make their data dreams come true. Whether it's like, I don't know what I'm doing with all these data, what laws? And I'll come in and help you and set up the whole logical model for it if you need analysis. So I do all of that stuff. There was something that I just saw in this chat that I wanted to say though. Oh no. Oh, it
Was it a
went too
question?
fast. Yeah, it went too fast though. Forgot
I
what.
think it would be really fun with your background in with I the easy way I wanna explain it is you're just an expert on tests and how these work, and like you said, we talked a little bit about the personality test that Scientology uses. It would be fun to get a copy of, like I said, Science or Survival, whatever the tone scale, and run it by you and see what you think of some of these things and how it relates to what you're talking about. 'Cause
Absolutely.
it's so much a part of what hooks people in Scientology are those beginning books like Dianetics and Science or Survival. And so much of what you're saying, I think could really speak to why that is. How, because that's a common question. How do people get into Scientology? What hooks them? And the simplest way that I know to explain it is that there's a little bit of truth. There's a
Of
little bit of
course.
universal truth that you go, oh, yeah, I can see that. That resonates with me. But you're always chasing that high of what resonated. Oh, Susanna, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate it. This is exactly what happened at the dentist office I worked in. We, the employees, were what? Resistant to it, and he backed off. I didn't realize it was Scientology until I started watching all of you on SPTV. Oh, Susanna, that is a whole thing. Just like I was saying, the Scientology front group, the World Institute of Scientology Enterprises, but they call it WISE because you can't be mentioning Scientology. And they say that, oh, we use L. Ron Hubbard's administrative technology, and they get you in that way, and that you worked in a dental office, that's exactly the target. They seem to go after a lot of dentists and a lot of chiropractors. But that's so great that you figured that out. Are you still there? We, the employees, were resistant to it and he backed off. That's so interesting. I would love to know where. Because many Scientologists have gotten in trouble for that, for trying to make their employees study Scientology. It's fascinating what they've done. So and again, I'm gonna say it again, at Pearl Snappy. You can find her channel. She's going to be out doing her thing at Austin. Connect with her if you want to get together and join in that. I cannot wait to see what kind of videos you come up with. And now I feel like I'm going to be going around wondering, like, oh, where are those cameras? And I definitely want to get one of those covers for my phone. I'm like, after this, I've got homework. I need to get a cover and I need to get a VPN.
Absolutely. I found the comment. So somebody said that the tests are always biased against the teachers and the students, and it's true. Number one, all standardized tests are meant for white men. Never forget that. Just the way your car is designed, countertops are designed, everything is designed for white men. It's very true for assessments. Um, and so when you do a growth model, because that's part of No Child Left Behind, they want to know your annual yearly progress,
Hmm.
which is basically a way to say how much did a teacher contribute to this student's achievement, which is ridiculous. You can't measure that. You don't like, what about all other variables, right?
Yeah.
Did they have, were they in the school district? What about the curriculum, right? So it's ridiculous. So yes, 100%. And it's made worse when you build in the annual yearly progress, because you can either make the kids look bad or the teachers look bad, and they're always going to make the teachers look bad. It's
Wow.
just how it comes up. And to the folks that were like, hey, I would love to chat with you more about cybersecurity, email me. I will talk about nerdery and all this stuff all day.
Well, and I think we're definitely going to have her back on the channel for sure, not just to talk about what's happening in Austin with Scientology and what you're going to be doing there. But I think anytime I think you're really handy because it's like with people going out and protesting Scientology, you might want to think a little bit about cybersecurity and to be able to share those tips that you have that can help people, even if they're not, just as you walk through the world. I think it's absolutely fascinating. So I'm so glad that you did this, and we'll figure out how to get you a Science or
I think
Survival book.
somebody sent it. Somebody in the chat said that they sent me a PDF of it, I believe.
Oh, awesome. That is fantastic. That's great. I cannot wait to hear you go through that and be like, okay, here's the deal here. Especially for so many, people who've been in Scientology, but I think to help people understand the hook, what gets them into it. Because if you can demystify that and really call it out for what it is, I think that would be very helpful to people in getting them to understand how they got hooked. It's
Right.
sometimes people who leave Scientology are whiplashed, and it can be such a big change, right? Especially if you grew up in Scientology, we spent our whole lives seeing the world through the lens that we were given and what we were told. And these are the only tools that you have to deal with it. Then when you let go of all that, when you leave, or most of it, I think sometimes it takes time to really shed a lot of that cult culture. There needs to be something to replace it, like actual tools,
Right.
legitimate ways of coping and dealing. And when you grow up in an organization that doesn't acknowledge mental illness, that will not let you take psychiatric drugs whether you need them or not. You could have serious mental illness. Yet L. Ron Hubbard died with psychiatric drugs in his system. Let's
In a
not forget
trailer.
that. In a trailer.
So
Let's not
perfect.
forget. Let's not forget
Never forget.
that at all. So get over to her channel, like and subscribe at Pearl Snappy. I think that we're going to have to, you are officially in charge of Austin.
Yes, please reach out, pearlsnappy at Gmail. I would love to have help. I don't want to be out there by myself also,
Yeah.
as for all the reasons. But I would love to get out there, and I might just start going out there and asking students. We are at the very beginning of a semester, which means that the kids are still going to all their classes, which means that there's gonna be more people on there. You start going around campus April and May, there's like a steady drop off. Like no one's going to class anymore. Right now, they're excited. The weather's getting better, so I think I'm gonna just go out there and ask the students around there, like, what do you
Yeah.
think of this building? Tax-free child trafficking on a main corner
Yeah.
of
Here's some
campus.
videos you need to watch to learn about. And then next thing you know, I don't doubt that they would want to be out there with you and taking up this cause of exposing
Yeah,
Scientology. You have all those kids right there. So that's going to be really interesting as well to see how that comes about and to see if they actually open the building or not, how they do it. So we will absolutely talk again. Make sure you go over and subscribe to her channel. Check your subscribe button at my channel too. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Like this video if you like it. It really helps. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate your support. All of you. I love that. All of you. What you do to help grow this channel, which then helps get the word out about what Scientology really is. the abuses and what we can do about it. This is a game changer right now. It is happening more and more, and in large part because of the masses. So many of you who've never even been in Scientology, but are willing to do something about it. And I'm super thankful. Super thankful. So follow her because she's the one who's going to tell you, and I'll update too what's happening in Austin. So Leslie, thank you so much. Hold
Thank
tight,
you.
Leslie. Hold
Thank
tight.
you.
Everybody,
I appreciate you giving me the shout out here, giving me a little bit of exposure. I, you know what, I probably will be there February 3rd because it's just down the street from me. I don't live
just in
far from the
case.
mission or the org, so I can go spy on them and show up pretty quickly to either. So
Yeah, we'll
if
get people to
somebody's, you
connect
know,
with you. We'll get people to
yeah,
connect and we'll bring it up between now and
I'm
there.
on
Help me remember.
TikTok too. You message me on TikTok. Everything's at Pearl Snappy. If I'm
At
on
Pearl
the internet,
Snappy.
it's at Pearl Snappy.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody else. I hope you get out there and you have the most amazing cult free night.